And 1 more minute, I'll start 12:02.
Sounds good.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for this previous rounds at your busy schedule. Today, we're privileged to have two speakers. And the first speaker is Dr. Corree Laule. And Corree is a physicist, an associate professor in the Department of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine and radiology. And she is also an associate member of physics and astronomy and also vice chair of research in radiology, associate director of education of ICORD as well. She has been involved with magnetic resonance research for 25 years and has an interdisciplinary research program spanning MRI technical innovations to validation and to clinical translation. The primary areas of research is in vivo and post-mortem imaging in multiple sclerosis and spinal cord injury. She's passionate about science communication and leads initiatives to increase diversity in STEM, emphasizing women and Indigenous people. And along with our second speaker, Dr. Miss Niamath, she founded and co-organized this SEED2 STEM program since 2018. Now to our next speaker. Next speaker is Miss Cheryl Niamath. She has a BFA in creative writing from UBC, with additional training in graphic design and photography from Emily Carr University of Art and Design. As a UBC staff member for more than 32 years, is currently ICORD Communications and Administrative Manager with responsibility for research centers, HR, communications, and events. One of her favorite things to do at work is teach graduate students how to design beautiful research posters. Along with Dr. Laule, she founded and co-organized the SEED2 STEM program since 2018, with the original goal of introducing Indigenous high school students to the exciting world of spinal cord injury research. She received the 2021 UBC President Service Award for Excellence, and partly in recognition of her commitment to the SEED2 STEM program. And today, our both speakers will present to us their experiences and successes on the SEED2 STEM program, summer research program for Indigenous youth. Please go ahead, Corree and Cheryl, for the presentation. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Cheryl and I are really happy to be here today to share with you some background information about this program, as Dr. Gao mentioned, that we established in 2018 called SEED2 STEM. We're going to do the presentation jointly together. I'm in control of the slides, so bear with us if there's any sort of technical glitches on the parts where Cheryl is talking, because she doesn't have control. As we get started here, we wanted to recognize and acknowledge the fact that this program takes place on the traditional, unceded, and ancestral territories of the Syilx Okanagan Nation, also known as Kelowna, and the Coast Salish people territories, including the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Now, neither Cheryl or I are Indigenous. I am an immigrant settler. I was born in Germany and moved to a little town called Lumbee, which is part of the Okanagan Nations region when I was really small. And then I moved down here to the Coast Salish territories to go to university, where I still am located.
And I was born in Richmond, which is on Musqueam territory. My mother's family settled here from various parts of Western Europe about 3 generations ago, and my dad moved to Vancouver from Trinidad in the 1950s to go to UBC.
So here's a bit of an outline of what we're hoping to cover in the next 40 or so minutes. We're going to give some learning objectives as a standard with these province-wide grand rounds. We'll go over some introductions, tell you a little bit about who we are, some history about the Seed to STEM program, how the program works, some exciting new partnerships that we're embarking upon now, as well as also some of the challenges that we've faced and what we're trying to do to try and address those issues as they come up. And finally, we'll tell you about how to host a student in your lab. Hopefully we've gotten you excited at that point, and then we'll happy to have some discussion at the end. Also, if people want to post questions in the chat as you go through, we can maybe come back to those towards the end. Unless there's something really kind of urgent that can't wait, please feel free to just unmute yourself or type something in the chat, and we'll try and do the best we can. So here we have our learning objectives. The first is to become familiar with the underrepresentation of Indigenous peoples in STEM fields. The second is to review the history of the Seed to STEM program, which was established in 2018. And then the third is to understand how you can create your own appropriate student project proposal if you wish to participate in the Seed to STEM program. So starting with who we are, as Dr. Gao mentioned, my name is Corree Laule. I'm a long-standing member of the UBC community. This will be 30 years this September that I will have been here in some form as a student, staff, or faculty member. An associate prof in the department with a joint appointment in radiology, and I co-established this program with Cheryl back in 2018.
And I'm Cheryl Niamath. I'm the Communications and Admin Manager for ICORD, which is an interdisciplinary spinal cord injury research center in the Faculty of Medicine and Vancouver Coastal Health Research Institute. I've co-organized Seed to STEM with Corree since 2018. And I'll just introduce the other people on our screen who are not speaking today. Michelle Wu is the Managing Director for Provincial Gynecologic Cancer Initiative and the ObCare program. She's working closely with Dr. Dawn Cochrane and in partnership with Corree and me to expand the Seed to STEM program to offer placements in gynecologic cancer research. Dawn Cochrane is a scientist with the Gynecologic Cancer Initiative and ObCare and a UBC adjunct professor in obstetrics and gynecology. And she's working with Michelle to expand the program in their department. Sienna Sarikawa is our wonderful UBC WorkLearn student who's helping to coordinate the program, and I think she's online as well right now. She is doing a combined undergrad degree at UBC in economics and gender, race, sexuality, and social justice. And there are two more heads on the screen who haven't actually been hired yet, but we are planning to hire a graduate research assistant to help with creating a new program, which we'll talk about a bit later, and a UBCO student to do similar work to what Sienna's doing here. So why did we start this program? Back in 2018, Corree and I were both on a faculty recruitment or faculty search, along with Dr. Maria Issa, who you see on the left-hand side of the photograph. The VP of HR came in to talk to us about diversity and in hiring and consideration of Indigenous candidates. And Maria said something like, wouldn't it be wonderful if there was a really awesome Indigenous candidate? And Corree and I both thought to ourselves, we don't even know any grad students in neuroscience. So where is a faculty candidate going to come from? And we looked into it a little further and we realized that we weren't imagining things. This table shows data from the 2021 Census of Canada for post-secondary fields for people aged 15 and above. Only 4.5% of people who identify as First Nations, Métis, and or Inuk have post-secondary degrees in STEM. That's compared to 11.6% for non-Indigenous Canadians. And then if you look at the breakdown by gender, it's even more interesting. So we thought about the reasons for Indigenous underrepresentation in STEM, including lack of opportunities, lack of support, and lack of role models, systemic barriers, historic inequality, and in a very modest way, with a tiny budget, we decided that we wanted to try and address some of these barriers and challenges. So we wanted to reach out to students when they were in high school, before they had to make decisions about electives and prerequisites and post-secondary applications.
So how does the program work? As Cheryl mentioned, we reach out to students in high school. We targeted specifically grade 9 to 12 to try and capture those students before they had to, for the most part, make decisions about prerequisite courses to get into university or post-secondary education. And so students in grade 9 to 12 are invited to apply to the program between January and April. Simultaneously, we also solicit project proposals from research labs who are interested in hosting a student. And you'll hear more about the project proposals later on, and I'll give some examples about what those look like. Following that, in May, the students' interests are matched with the research projects that are available. And then what we're going to be doing something new this year in May or June for all the students that are part of the program. We're going to do what we're calling a pre-placement workshop, where they come in for an afternoon for a few hours, and we try and get everybody kind of up to speed about what it's going to be like to be working. So for many of these students, especially the younger ones, they've never ever had a job before of any kind. And so we learned quickly in the first couple of years of the program, even kind of things that are obvious and basic to us, like appropriate work attire, you know, what to do if you're sick or if you're going to be late, how to respond to emails. All those sorts of things were really important for the students to kind of learn about early on in their work placements. And so we've decided to try and tackle some of those things before they actually start working, which is will be happening this year on July 2nd. So it's a 6-week program. They work 5 hours a day for a total of 6 weeks. And so we didn't want them to have to be working 8 hours a day and still not have any time for sort of a summer break. So we thought 5 hours would be a good sort of intermediary. And then program alumni, so students that have come through the program as high school students and then have transitioned on to some sort of post-secondary education, are invited to return as undergraduate research assistants for a longer period of time, so up to 4 months if they want. And as Cheryl mentioned, an important part of the program is that the students are all paid. So this is not a volunteer sort of initiative. We felt it was really important that the students be paid for their time, so they wouldn't have to make a choice about earning money, which they may need for summer jobs or to help their families, versus having this experience. So that is an important component of this program. So what does kind of a typical week look like? So the students are paid for 5 hours a day for each day of the week. And the majority of the time they are spending in the research labs working on a research project. 1 day a week, the students come together in a group and do what we're calling group learning modules. So this is where they'll be together as a group and get guest speakers coming in, sometimes by Zoom, sometimes in person. And this guest speakers speak on a wide range of topics. So for example, spinal cord injury, biomedical engineering, neuroscience, big presentation about presentation skills. Here's a picture of one of our guest speakers that we had this last summer. This is Richard Peter. He is a Paralympian and also is Indigenous. And so he brought in his one of his gold medals, and the students were all really excited to hear about his story and his experiences that he had. Also on these days, the students get field trips. So these are to different kind of labs and other sites. For example, GF Strong, the BD Biodiversity Museum. This last summer we went to the First Nations House of Learning and various other locations. And then finally, on the very last day of the program, we do what we're calling a celebration lunch and poster presentation. This is where all the students can get together that participated in the program and present a poster on their project or what they learned in a low-key and sort of very friendly environment. We'd get them to invite their friends and their family, their parents and their siblings, and various other people that are important in their lives can come in and learn about what they did and what other students did in the program. And it really is meant to be a celebration of everything that they accomplished over the summer.
So I talked earlier about addressing barriers. What are we doing to try and mitigate those barriers? First important thing that Corree already mentioned, and apparently I mentioned earlier before that, is that we do pay the students. They are paid minimum wage for working 5 hours a day for 5 days a week for 6 weeks. And undergrads are paid basically full-time. They're still paid at minimum wage, but it's for the full 4 months of the summer. We provide transit passes for the high school students for July and August, so they don't have to spend any of the money that they earned getting to work and getting home. We have loaner laptops that are available for students that don't have a laptop of their own, and the lab that they're going to doesn't have a desktop available for them. Last year, we started offering snacks during our learning modules, and we've also provided a few meals because we discovered that some students were coming to work and to the learning modules still hungry. So we wanted to help them with that. We engage visiting speakers from Indigenous backgrounds who can inspire the students. So last year we had Richard Peter, who you saw on the previous slide, from Praxis Spinal Cord Institute, who's with the Cowichan First Nation. We also had Melissa Perot, who is a neuroscientist at Guelph and a member at NMAT. Returning students who are either later in high school or undergraduates also act as role models and provide mentorship. Coming up this year, we are hoping to be able to offer travel bursaries to students coming from remote communities, and we want to be able to provide more meals, probably lunch every Monday when the students get together for their learning modules, and we'd also like to be able to offer support from Indigenous support workers, which we'll talk about a little later on.
So in terms of the supervision that happens for the high school students, typically the direct supervisors, so the people that are working with the students kind of on a day-to-day basis, are often graduate students, postdocs, or staff in a PI's lab. Everyone who is involved with supervising, mentoring, or working with a student is gets training on Indigenous issues and cultural safety. So for example, there's the BCIT course on Indigenous awareness. This past year, we also partnered with UBC CTLT, Indigenous Initiatives, to host a workshop on what I learned in class today. Something new that we're working on for 2024, we've recently received some seed grant funding from ICORD to develop what we're calling a toolkit for supervisors. So this is basically like a package that we can give out to anybody who's going to be involved with supervising, mentoring, or working with the students, that describes how to put together a suitable project proposal, tips and tricks for giving feedback and mentorship in a positive and constructive way to students that are really quite young, fostering inclusive environments, and also being aware and understanding about what sort of skill levels these students are coming in with, because as I said, most of them have never had a job before if they're on the earlier spectrum of the scale. And they are still in high school, so we can't expect them to be, at senior level undergrad sort of levels.
So a little bit about the history of the program. We started off really small in 2018. Despite sending our invitation out to school boards all over the Lower Mainland, we only had one student join us, but she was awesome. Her name is Eliana, and she came from Burnaby. And then the next year, Eliana came back and we had 2 more students who were, so all 3 of them were in grade 11. The 2 other students joined us from North Vancouver, Shanna and Dean. In 2020, we had 5 students lined up, but we had unfortunately had to cancel for COVID. In 2021, we were able to offer some virtual placements and some in-person placements, depending on which labs were back in person. Shanna, Dean, and Eliana all came back, and then we had 6 other high school students join. In 2021, our 3 original students were back. We had 2 new high school students join us in Vancouver, and we also opened up in UBCO and were able to place 7 students in UBCO labs. Last year, we really focused on recruiting, and it paid off. We had 17 high school students join us, 14 in Vancouver, including 1 who was returning from 2022, plus Shanna as an undergrad. Unfortunately, Eliana took a leave from school for health reasons, and Dean got a full-time co-op job for an engineering company. So he didn't come back either, although all 3 of them are still on our advisory panel and came to our first day and talked to the new students. In Kelowna, we had 1 student return as an undergrad, 1 student return as a high school student, and 2 high school students. We are looking forward to 2024. We've already started recruiting, and 7 students already have told us they're planning to come back, and 2 of them are planning to bring siblings with them. So far, 32 different students have come through the program since 2018. They've all started when they were in grades 9 to 12, although some of them are continuing, 4 of them have continued as undergrads. And we're expecting at least 3 to 5 more undergrads to join us in the summer. The students in the program represent a wide range of Canadian Indigenous groups. This is just a list from 2023, the year that we started asking them if they'd provide this information to us.
And so part of the program, an important part of the program is for us to solicit feedback from all of the student participants so that we can learn about what's going well, maybe what's not going well, how we can improve, gaps that we need to try and address. And so this is just a bit of a summary about some of the feedback that we received from this last 2023 cohort. So 86% of the students that participated felt confident in their skills and abilities to contribute to research and felt a sense of purpose in their lab. 93% of students felt both included in lab activities and supported when they had questions and problems, as well as felt that they learned new skills and techniques that they could use to achieve their individual goals. 100% of students felt accepted and respected by supervisors, lab mates, and staff, and we're glad that they signed up for the program. And 93% of students plan to return next summer, which is this coming summer. And as Cheryl said, we've opened up applications, and we've already had quite a few students respond saying that they are planning on coming back. So just a few quotes from some of the students that have participated in the program. So this is Jenna. This is a quote from when she was in grade 10. She's in grade 12 right now and will be coming back this summer as well. I love that the work I was doing would contribute to the science community. I got to learn what it really means to be part of research science. This is Nishaya, who was in grade 10 this past summer and will be coming back as a grade 11 student in the coming summer. I came from over 1,000 kilometers away, and I definitely do not regret it. This is one of my biggest accomplishments. Being a researcher is my long-term goal. Here we have Iris, who started in grade 10. She returned last year as a grade 11 student and is coming back as a grade 12 student this coming summer, and is probably going to be bringing her little sister, so we're excited about that. It's an incredible experience that opens a lot of doors for your future. Personally, I used to believe that a job in science was past my abilities, but this program inspired me to think about science as a career. And then finally, we have Dean that Cheryl mentioned, who's been with us a number of years, started as a grade 11 student. I worked with biomedical research engineers and was tasked with improving the intervertebral discs that were used in their anthropomorphic test device, the omnidirectional neck. I then had the opportunity to design different intervertebral discs and design a protocol to test the discs. I made many friends this work term and met amazing new people. And so Dean was one of the people that, as a more senior student, actually was involved supervising a high school student in grade 10 the year before last. So this is a really nice, I think component of the program is that students who do return in more senior positions are able to act as mentors for the more junior students.
After our first couple of years, we realized that we could use some external guidance. We wanted to have a process for helping the program to grow, evaluate progress, and help figure out a path to sustainability. So we set up an advisory panel, and the first meeting was in January of 2022. It includes our three students from the beginning, Eliana, Dean, and Shanna, a parent, Shanna's mom, an Indigenous support worker from Surrey School Board, a member of the board for the Verna J. Kirkness Foundation, which is another group that a much more established and larger group than ours that offers STEM placements for students and university experience 1 week out of the year where the students go and live at the university and take classes. And then the Indigenous Peoples Liaison from the Praxis Spinal Cord Institute, which is Richard Peter, who you saw on the previous slide. So 25 different I-Cord and School of Biomedical Engineering labs have hosted students since 2018. In 2021, SBME partnered with us, and they offered generously to cover the cost for student placements within any faculty labs that belong to SBME. And then in 2022, I-Cord labs at UBCO joined the program and offered placements for 7 students in Kelowna. Then this late in 2023, the Gynecologic Cancer Initiative contacted us and said that they really wanted to be part of the program, and they committed to offering 6 placements for students this coming summer. And earlier this week, we found out that we received funding, a strategic investment fund grant from the Faculty of Medicine, which will support rolling out this program across the entire faculty over the next 2 years. So things are growing. And in addition to the sites where we've had students placed, we also have support from Vancouver Coastal Health Research Institute. They give us funding every year, which so far we've used to help cover the cost of our work learn students. And Stryker Company, which makes medical equipment, has given us a donation, which we plan to use to help support travel bursaries for students from rural communities, and hopefully to cover the cost of some Indigenous support workers to help out. So we've had a few challenges over the years, although things seem to be much brighter now. This time last year, I think Corree and I were pretty stressed about funding was our main issue. For the first 2 years, basically, we funded this program with whatever money we could scrounge from between the couch cushions. There was a couple of grants that were that we were able to pull a bit of funding from, and then in 2021, SBME came on board and supported placements with SBME faculty. And then in 2022, we got the funding from UCHRI. And then slowly, the labs that where the students are placed have started to see the value in having the students come into their labs. And more labs are now either fully supporting or partly supporting the cost of students. And then this year, we received the Stryker funding and the SIF. So things are looking up in this department, but we're still trying to figure out a way to have sustainable funding so that we don't have to worry every year or two how we're going to keep going. We've had a few issues with students. The biggest one up until last year was recruitment. It was hard to get the interest of students in the Lower Mainland because there's a lot of competing programs out there. But we've got some really good links with key people in the different school boards who are helping promote the program. And I don't think that's going to be a problem anymore. Last year, we also discovered or found we had students join us who are facing food insecurity at home. Their families use food banks. They were coming to work and to our events hungry. So we started offering snacks and meals once a week. And for those students that were very hungry, we would go and buy lunch for them. We're trying to figure out a way to offer meals to the students without having to single out the ones that need help versus the ones that are okay. And we've had students join us who are dealing with emotional and physical trauma. And, you know, sometimes they react differently than what we're expecting when things happen in the labs. So we are hoping to hire an Indigenous support worker who can help us deal with those types of situations and navigate our way through that with this coming summer. And then I guess the last problem is a good problem to have. As the program grows, so do administrative and leadership time commitments. We had one work-learn student in 2022, 23, and right now we have one. We will have two in the summer, but really it would be really nice to have like a full-time staff person to help with this. It's really fun to work on this, but we also both have other full-time jobs. So
yeah, it is really fun, and it often like goes to the top of my list because this is one of the most fun things I'm involved in. But yeah, we definitely need, I think, a full-time person to help us continue to grow and sustain the program and making sure that Cheryl and I don't collapse. So hopefully we've gotten you somewhat excited about this program, and maybe you're interested in hosting a student or two. Some labs have hosted two students at the same time, and that can be a nice thing for the students as well, because they can work together and help support each other. So what are the steps? The first thing you need to do is confirm your availability. So for this year, the program is going to run from July 2nd to August 9th. And it's important that you do consider not just, if you're going to be in town, but whether you actually have time or someone in your lab has time to, be there and help and support the students, because they really do need, especially the younger ones, a lot of guidance and hand-holding. This, you shouldn't be thinking of this as an opportunity to, get in a, high-powered undergrad and you're going to get a paper out by the end of the summer. It's really not. It's not about that. I mean, eventually, maybe, in some cases, the students will return multiple years, and in a few years' time, they might be, on that sort of a level. But certainly for starting out, it's going to be a lot about them learning and them shadowing and maybe just helping out with various things. And that, of course, needs supervision. So the next thing then is to create a project proposal, and I'll show some examples about what those look like in the coming slides. They're not a very onerous application. It's not like a 10-page grant proposal or anything like that. And then, linking back to the availability, assign a supervisor, somebody that will be available and around, or two people for the duration of the program. We will be hosting another pre-placement workshop again this year for supervisors, mentors, anybody, team members, part of the lab. And then, through the duration of the program, it's important that you check in with your student and the supervisor during the work term to make sure that things are actually going well. And we will also connect with you and the student and the supervisor too, to make sure that things are going as they should be. Finally, we highly encourage all supervisors and lab members to come to the lunch and celebration poster session on the very last day, which this year is going to be Friday, August 9th. And then very importantly, we want feedback from everybody who's involved in the program so that we can learn about what worked well, what didn't work well, if any issues came up, so we can try and figure out ways to address those, moving forward. These are some examples of different project proposals that the students have worked on. So we've done things like evaluation of muscle morphology following a spinal cord injury, engineering a surrogate neck for use in creating improved safety features. So that was Dean's project. Adaptive fashion for individuals with disabilities, lower limb exoskeletons in spinal cord injury research, self-amplifying mRNA, and simulating cell movement and cargo transport. So this is just a screenshot of what the application form, project proposal form looks like. It's a single page, so nothing too onerous. And there's kind of two main components that you need to fill out: the description of the project, and then what concepts and techniques the student will learn. And it's important to use language that is, accessible to somebody that is at a grade 9 or grade 10 sort of level. So here's one example. When an embryo develops, clusters of cells migrate in order to connect up to neurons and eventually form the nervous system. How do those cells stay together and find their way? If we can understand this process, we may be able to help understand how to treat and heal neural injury in adults. This project will use mathematical and computational modeling to study the collective behavior of groups of cells and their migration. We'll use information from experimental studies by Professor Kulesa and computations of cells and clusters devised by Dr. Keshet and an undergraduate student. The student will learn concepts such as functions, graphs, forces, and mechanics. These will be taught in the context of collective cell behavior, and the student will learn some computational biology methods. This is a second example. We are collecting data from 2 human physiology studies in the summer. These studies specifically are investigating the effect of exercise and hypoxia on human health and performance. Similar to last year, our summer students will assist with data collection and participant interactions, i.e. they will be in charge of schedule and administration duties. If the students are comfortable with invasive procedures, they may be asked to help with blood processing and analysis. In terms of what they will learn: data collection, analysis, interpretation, running a research project, example buying supplies, and ensuring equipment is in working order.
So you might be wondering how much it costs to run this program. High school students, the cost is about $3,000 per student. That includes their wage, as well as their transit passes, printing for their posters, and a share of the administrative costs. Undergraduates earn a minimum of $2,500 a month. Up to $10,000 for an undergraduate, but a lot of them are eligible for fellowship funding, which would reduce that cost quite significantly. In addition to those costs, there's the cost that's borne by the lab for supervisor time and consumables if that is used in the experiment. The Seed to STEM program covers pre-placement training for the students, so chemical and biosafety, general pre-employment training. We have weekly learning modules and guest speakers. We have the cultural awareness program for the supervisors and lab members. We offer field trips, snacks, as I mentioned, and some meals, Indigenous support worker, and logistics and administrative support. So we take care of doing all of the appointments and processing in Workday. So nobody else has to deal with that. And we cover full or part of the students' salaries. If you can cover half or all of the salary, it allows us to spend more, or to bring in more students in total. But we can cover the cost, and we realize that the student is possibly not going to be contributing a lot to the research in your lab, so you might not have funding to cover that, at least in the first year, until you find out how awesome it is to be part of the program.
That's right. So wrapping up here, coming back to our learning objectives, first being to become familiar with the underrepresentation of Indigenous people in STEM fields. So we touched on that briefly at the beginning. There's a very clear underrepresentation of people in STEM fields. So in comparison to non-Indigenous people, the stats were 4% Indigenous people in STEM fields relative to 12% non-Indigenous people in STEM fields. Talked about the history of the Seed to STEM program, gave you, I think, a fairly comprehensive overview of where things started, with 1 student in 2018 to close to 20 in 2023. and expanding more in the coming year. And then hopefully you've gotten a bit of a sense on how to create an appropriate student project proposal if you are interested in participating in the Seed to STEM program.
So we've actually got, we have student applications and project proposal applications available on our website, which is the URL is listed there, and I'll pop it in the chat afterwards as well. So in addition to thinking about hosting a student in your lab, if you know any students who you think might be interested, please encourage them to apply. The application deadline for students is April 2nd, and the project proposal deadline is April 12th. And if you're thinking of submitting a proposal and you're not sure how to create one, just contact us and we can help you put one together.
Yeah, totally. So with that, we'd like to close the, I guess, more formal part of this presentation. We'd be happy to take any questions. You can pop them in the chat or unmute yourself, or email either Cheryl or myself at the contact provided if you have things you want to follow up on. But with that, we thank you very much for your attention.
Shall I stop sharing the screen so we can see people?
Sure.
It looks like there's two things in the two comments in the chat.
Okay.
Maria was my biochem prof in college days. That's awesome. Maria's awesome.
She's awesome. Yeah. Susan, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Corree, and you know how much I love this project of yours. I had a few questions. You said you targeted high schools in the Lower Mainland, but also UBC Okanagan, there was spots available.
Yes. Yeah. So we started in the Lower Mainland, and then in 2022 we expanded to the Okanagan, and initially you know, we advertised to school districts around UBCO, so Kelowna, Vernon, kind of that general area.
Yeah.
In 2022, and we did the same thing for last year, but then somehow students outside of that school district learned about the program. We're not really entirely sure how they found out. I mean, it might have been forwarded to various people, but we had one student come, Nishaya, from somewhere quite far up north. I can't quite remember the town that she.
North of Prince Rupert.
North of Prince Rupert.
Wow.
So she came to Vancouver. Her family arranged their accommodation. There was another student, Jordan, that came from Nelson. No, I don't remember. Nikas, thank you. And his family arranged for accommodation in Kelowna for him to participate. So we definitely think there's a lot of potential to expand to even kind of more rural areas. And we had actually a couple of other students lined up, one from Edmonton and one from Kamloops that wanted to participate last summer as well. And then things kind of fell through at the last minute with their accommodation. But we're hoping to kind of tap into that more and offer we're not going to offer accommodation and arrange accommodation for them because we don't want to be responsible for
that's a huge amount
high
of
school
work.
students.
Yes.
But we're going to offer funding to help cover the cost of their plane ticket and paying for a billet, kind of accommodation type thing this coming year for some students.
Excellent. Another question I had is, if the project warrants more than 5 hours a day and students want to work more than 5 hours a day, is there funding for that and the opportunity?
We have not had that come up. I think if the supervisor wants to cover the additional funding and the student is keen to do that, I can't see why we would say no. But in terms of like the funding that the program has, we have funding for a student for 5 hours a day for 6 weeks. But if the super wants to top that up for more hours, or the student wants to work more, sure.
And my last question, sorry, I take the whole question period here, is for clinical work in clinical hospital labs. Can students, I don't know about the liability, but can we have students in clinical pathology labs?
You want to take that one, Cheryl?
And you may not know the answer to that, but I'm wondering.
So we have been, last year we spent a lot of time going back and forth with UBC risk assessment about the program.
Yes, yeah.
And it was finally decided that no, it's fine for the students to do work in the labs. They're required to take the online UBC bio and chemistry.
Yes, yeah.
We've been told they don't need to do the practical part of that anymore, as long as, and that's excellent, because that was bogging down their whole
Yes.
summer projects. They wouldn't make it into the one class. It was awkward. Anyway, so they don't have to do that, but they do need to be, always need to be supervised. So, and then we also ask them and their parents to sign a consent form that they're aware that there are hazards present in their place.
In the lab, yeah.
Yeah.
But for clinical data and clinical patients, if there's not really a project, but just shadowing a pathologist, could that be something?
Yeah, I don't see why not. We all, for students that are doing work with in human studies, we also ask them to do the ethics, bioethics.
Yeah,
course.
yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I think there's a question in the chat that we could answer quickly before we get to James and Craig, if that's okay. From Dr. Quant, what types of involvement have the students found most rewarding? Have you had that info come back through student feedback? I don't think there's, I think the students have been, in general, enjoyed projects where they're doing more hands-on work than being asked to, like, there've been a few projects that have been, that turned into read all these papers and write a summary, which isn't that exciting for a high school student. So as long as they're involved in the lab and they're doing things with people and not sitting still all the time, but, you know, having different stuff to do, I think they've all really
did like that. And it doesn't have to be anything like complicated, like, you know, sorting slides, or like, you know, like even something like that. Like you think like for a lot of these kids, especially the ones like this is their first term, they're coming out of grade 9, they're coming to work at a university, like a university lab. Like that's pretty exciting. So, you know, anything that they're kind of doing to help contribute, I think is a good experience for them. James.
Oh, thank you. Great presentation, and really excited to see this. You know, my big question is, where the heck were you guys over 35 years ago when I was a high school student? And I can relate to you, Corree. Like I'm approaching my 30 years here at UBC too, so seen a lot of changes over the years, and been involved with a lot of other summer youth programs. So I just had a few questions about. You know, if your program was in connection with like the program, like the summer science program that's been here for over 30 years now, 35 years, I think now or more. And this is an Indigenous high school summer program that happens every July. And it would be really great to promote you guys' program with that group, because they normally receive about 40 to 50 Indigenous high school students, grade 8 to 12, that attend that summer camp. And it's a 2-week summer camp. I think with the first week is like grade 8 to 9, and then the other one is grade 10 to 12. And I think they would really benefit this information from you guys, you know, and I think a lot of those high school students would like to see that opportunity, you know, available to them.
I think we were in touch last year.
I think so too, and I'm trying to remember what happened there.
Okay.
They had a database, I guess, of students, and they did share information about our program with
great.
and
that's right.
Also let them know, like, if there were students that wanted to apply to that program, that, you know, ours would work out better. A lot of the students that are going to the summer science program don't have basically a whole summer to do stuff. So that's where the big difference is. And also we pay the students versus them paying to go to something.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, you know, if you do present that to them, then, you know, the high school students can think, well, maybe next year I can go STEM, right? Or
exactly.
And then the other one I was going to recommend, there's always I don't know how many, 100 or 300 high school students that come every year here called Indigenous Experience UBC. That's actually happening on the 22nd, I believe, in February. So
we went last year, and I think, are we confirmed to attend this year, Cheryl, or not yet?
We've requested a table. We're waiting to hear back. But yeah, that was really interesting. And also just interesting to hear about how the students, like the process that they go through to apply to UBC. But we had a lot of students stop by our table who were interested in the program, and hopefully we'll again.
And then my final recommendation is, I'm not sure if you've already been in connect with this person, but we do have an Indigenous advisor in the Faculty of Sciences, and her name is Sasha Laule. It would be good to connect with her because I believe she also does recruiting in the communities as well. So
Sasha, what was the last name?
Old and then Bull.
Okay, Old Bull. Okay.
Two separate words. So
okay. Okay, perfect. No, we have not connected with
Celicia. That's her first
Celicia. Okay. We'll try and find her, and if we can, I may follow up with you directly, James, to help me.
Actually send me an email because I have her contact here if you want.
Awesome.
I can forward to you. And the other thing I just want to let you guys know too is actually I actually ran into an old college buddy of mine, and I think he was in Maria's class too. But we haven't seen each other for over 30 years, and he works for a company called Precision Nanosystems, which is based in I think it's based around the world, but they do have a facility here in Vancouver. And I ran into his he actually introduced me to his vice president, and she's very interested in providing. Their company is interested in providing summer opportunities for Indigenous science students, as well as future
awesome
staff members or careers. And so actually, Celicia from the Faculty of Sciences is we're planning to meet with members from that company to see what they have available. And so I'm not sure, but they might be interested in your guys' program, that company too.
Definitely. Cheryl, did you manage to jot down? Okay.
I wrote that down, but maybe we can connect with James afterwards.
Yes. Precision Nanosystems. So,
okay. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for those recommendations.
They're a biopharmaceutical company, I think. So
okay. Cool.
All right. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you. Craig.
Hi, Corree and Cheryl. Thank you for that very inspirational presentation. Just on a personal note, reflecting on the food insecurity issue that some of these children face, is there a mechanism for individual contributions to contribute, say, to cover the cost of a student's meals for that type of program?
We do have well, first of all, thank you for asking that question. We have a crowdfunding page that's set up through UBC Development Office. But if other people are interested in like supporting the food for the students, we can figure something out. It was surprising. It should have been, but it was surprising to us last summer.
It's a lot more of an issue than we realize, and it touches more kids than I'd like to think about. So I was just kind of curious if there was a mechanism as an individual could contribute.
I believe that very soon on the Department of Pathology website there will be, in the donation button, there will be one devoted to that. I mean, when say people want to donate, they will have options. One of the options will be specifically to send money toward this program.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, it was definitely pretty gut-wrenching when Cheryl and I found out about the challenges that this one student was having, and then potentially others as well. And we're like, oh my God, we have to do something, but we need to also figure out how to do it in a way that's, like, as Cheryl mentioned, that works and then is respectful of people's privacies and not singling people out. And so,
even if you're providing snacks throughout the day.
It's like a common area where people can go and get things, like if they're hungry, right?
Thank you.
How do you navigate kind of the inequity if there's somebody in the department who's not Indigenous, but also has food insecurity? In that lab, a student or somebody else? Is there a mechanism for that?
For within this program, or
yeah, kind of, if there is food delivered to only one person, I can see that there may be an equity.
Well, I mean, that's just it. I don't think we
Yeah.
want to make it so that it's like, you know,
Yeah,
people are getting
they
a
get food.
DoorDash
Yes.
delivery in front of like a bunch of other people, because that's also
because
really,
food insecurity is a big issue for
it
every,
is, it
like,
is,
especially Indigenous community, but also for other people.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it's a big problem.
I'm just putting a link to our program page in the chat. At the bottom of the page is a link to our donation page through UBC. This is an answer to James's question, not as a subtle encouragement to donate to the program, right?
If there's any other questions, or I mean, if people have questions, you can contact us as well. And hopefully some of you are interested in potentially hosting a student or learning more about the program. You know, we often are also looking for people to, you know, be guest speakers sometimes or give lab tours. We do try and change things up every year because we do have students returning, and so we don't want, you know, students having to go to whatever GF Strong for the third year in the row. So yeah, there's lots of ways to contribute and be part of the program.
Thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both for the excellent work and very altruistic contributions to the society, and great presentation as well. Certainly you inspired everybody in the audience and will contribute and help in whatever way we want. Yes, please go ahead to help. Yeah, in your capacity to make sure the program is continually successful. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.